What is your project called?
TIP, which stands for Theatre as an Inclusive Practice.
Please describe it.
The idea of the project involved 4 different organisations from the UK, Bulgaria and Slovenia coming together. Each organisation picked a theatre practice, and we looked at ways that these are inclusive and that these can continue to be inclusive across different groups of people. So the identified groups of people were those with a disability, those from the LGBTQ plus community, looking at refugees, and those from different socioeconomic backgrounds. And the theatre practices that were used specifically were verbatim theatre, devising theatre, theatre of the oppressed, and labyrinthine theatre, which is also known as theatre of the senses. So during the project, different learning materials were created, including a training programme and an inclusion pack, along with different resources that can be used after the life of the project. And we brought together all members, participants from the different organisations to create a piece of inclusive theatre that was led by young workshop leaders that were specifically trained in all of the theatre practices and making them inclusive for all.
How is your project linked to cultural peer learning?
A lot of different ways. It wasn't just what was identified in terms of the cultural peer learning. There's also identifying the different groups that I've mentioned, but the young workshop leaders being trained have that peer element and that legacy of ensuring and helping to change views on different groups and cultures for future generations, and having that peer participation, but also with coming together like we did, having individuals from different parts of the UK, from Slovenia and Bulgaria, and all the different backgrounds that these individuals have that aren't necessarily the same cultures. Everyone got to have conversation and learn about everyone's lived experiences, and find connections across different cultures that are seen in others. So individuals experiencing things in Bulgaria, there are through lines and things that are common also with those in the UK. So it's showing that different cultures do still have similarities as well, and that peer understanding just through conversation and creating a piece of theatre.
Right, yeah. And during that week in Cardiff, they started working with the workshop leaders, the facilitators from the different partner countries, but then they proceeded working in their own groups, alone, learning from each other, and eventually developing the theatre piece
together. So it was very peer-led, very focused on the individuals and expressing with each other, not just being told what to express.
Yeah, very strong in that domain. And that reminds me, and it should be here on the recording so that I don't forget to do it, we need to link up the theatre play to this video, so that when we promote TIP, we actually promote its most, important or impactful result.
And as well, just within I know everyone still talks about the red thread that is very much a through line within the performance, and something that, even though it's specific to one culture, very much resonated with everyone, and the reasoning behind it, and there were so many meanings by the end, as well as its traditional meaning.
Yeah,
Which I
absolutely.
think is amazing.
Right. I agree.
How are the participants involved? How can others join?
Very, very similar, really. Call out to, within the UK organisations, within UCAN Productions and within Mess Up the Maths, it was an open call out to not just members and participants that have already been involved in the organisation, but others wider who might want to get involved. That, again, the call out, are you experiencing this, are you between this age range and things, and then people came forward and would want to be involved, and it was for both young workshop leaders being trained in the inclusive theatre practices, and then for the participants that were involved in the sharing event in Cardiff.
Yeah, it was lovely how partners managed to involve participants not only from their own cities and towns, but from all over
Yeah,
partner
100%.
countries. Yeah.
And like, even now, even though the project actively is coming to, well, is at an end, all of the resources and things that have been developed means that anyone can continue to use TIP and get involved with it. Is very much a legacy project.
What are the benefits?
It's I'm probably going to miss out a couple or several, because there's so many benefits to this project. First and foremost, just an understanding of making theatre inclusive, not just for one group, but for a multitude of groups. I would say, first and foremost, that is probably the number one benefit of making theatre inclusive and showing that it can be inclusive. Benefit of widening engagement and participation and creating relationships across borders and across the sea, with many individuals that I know are still in contact with each other, and do still shout out to each other and praise each other when, especially through social media now, like, those connections have been established. I think just a wider awareness of those that have been involved going forward, wanting to continue to find independently, find different ways, and their eyes have, not for the UCAN lot, that's probably the worst pun, their eyes have been opened, but that they want to find independent ways of things being inclusive, and just taking that forward in their day-to-day practice and lives. So I think those are huge benefits, and just the work and the connections that have been made and the resources that have been made. I think they're just beneficial to anyone who does come across TIP or has been told about TIP. It's definitely, I think there's a strong set of resources that have been developed to help others who weren't involved in the project to be able to make theatre inclusive for themselves.
Yeah, and it was a youth project, yet recently we promoted it before a group of guests who are coming from the school education field.
Yeah.
And when we shared some of the exercises that we used from the different types of theatre, they were really enthusiastic, and they immediately saw all these games and exercises applicable also within their community, the school communities.
Yeah.
And I can easily see it also in the adult community. I mean, it is self-development regardless of what level of education you're at.
Yeah, I mean, within UCAN, when we've done some other workshops and exercises and things with adults, not young people, they benefit so much from it. And it's something as well, these practices that we've learned and developed through TIP, we're looking to carry them on and utilize them going forward with other projects that that are potentially completely different to what TIP was, but that there's always some element of TIP that can be used in different projects and different exercises and activities, and it's very relevant to a lot of different people, which is something, yeah, that we found as well.
What are the challenges?
Were there any?
Yeah, 100% there were challenges. I don't think any of the challenges outweighed the benefits or the outcomes of the project. Obviously, there were challenges, I know, individually with organisations in terms of participation and travel. But I think in terms of then of certain engagement levels within different groups, and them not for any fault of their own, really. They're there and they're wanting to engage, but there was outside factors that restricted them. Speaking specifically about more about Humanitas, the organisation in Slovenia that couldn't necessarily get all their participants over to the UK because of the challenges of travelling as a refugee and having a refugee status and obtaining visas and things like that. Your practitioner Milena also was unable to attend Cardiff due to challenges of obtaining visas and travel and things. So I think that was the biggest one. Getting everyone on Zoom in one place as well when we had to was a bit of a challenge, just because of time zone differences and work schedules and all of that. But I think I struggle myself to see any challenges when we were all in a group. I mean, yes, there were different language barriers at first, but I think the young people involved, especially when it came to the individual groups working together, even though there were different language barriers, everyone found a solution to those challenges and were actually quite willing to not just see it as a challenge and not do anything about it. They actively found solutions and wanted to make sure everyone was included. So even when there were language barriers across everyone, there was a solution that was found, which I think was actually really nice to witness as well.
It was amazing. When I think of it, including those monologues in the free languages, in English, Slovenian, and Bulgarian. And the main reason for that was one of the Bulgarian participants. I'm 100% sure that was the reason. She was not too confident with her English.
Yes.
And this was the way to have her fully included and confident, and that was amazing.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was a sensory experience for the audience as well. I mean, all the Welsh people in the audience, they were listening to Slovenian and Bulgarian.
Yeah, but it's also that you can still get those reactions as well because of just like tone and intention within a speech, even if you don't understand the exact words that are being saying until they're said to you. I know myself when I was a part of creating that monologue setup, when I would hear the Bulgarian and the Slovenian translation of it, I still got the emotions and still got like the intention that was being shown. And then when I heard it in English, I understood why I was feeling those emotions, because even though I didn't understand what was being said, I could feel the emotions of what was being said. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How can this project be transferred to the digital dimension?
We have the website that showcases the project. All of the resources are available in different languages as well. And we have a multitude of training videos from all of the organisations in relation to all of the theatre practices and how everyone approached it and how it can be approached differently, even though it's the same practice. And we also have the videos that showcase the structure of the week where we created that final piece and what we did on each day, and includes interviews with people who participated in the project and in that final week. But it's also got information then on each individual organisation, so that anyone else can approach and come to, whether it be your organisation, my organisation, or any of the others, to ask questions and to find out more information that maybe isn't necessarily on the website, or that they don't quite understand, that is available. But I think as well, with us also being able to do some of the activities via Zoom, that shows that this isn't just an in-person practical way of creating theatre and engaging individuals. It can be done digitally. I know specifically my organisation, we did all of our training over Zoom, because we, at the time, because of COVID, we couldn't physically get together, because of the risk to our individuals being vulnerable. So yeah, there are examples within what we've created on how it can be digitalized and work if you're working over a distance with individuals, if you can't meet up in person as well. So I think there's a lot of scope for it to be in the digital world.
Yeah, absolutely. You were the best example of how it can happen, how theater training can happen digitally. And then also we as a peer team, we were also doing our peer trainings over Zoom.
Yeah.
This was the way, yeah. Again, because of COVID, because of other obstacles, we couldn't meet as often as we would have loved to. So we were doing the Zoom trainings together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, TIP is very, very good example of how you can do cultural peer learning, in the sense of both mixing different cultures and also using cultural aspects as theater, as a type of art, which is a part of culture in general. Yeah, for personal growth and development and for inclusion.
Yeah, 100%.
Ultimately, that was the ultimate goal.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think the resources that have been created completely showcase that, and showcase the heart of what the project aimed to do, and hopefully inspires people to be able to use it to engage and promote culture, and different creative arts methods, and mixing different cultures as well. Like, I think, yeah, it's definitely got very solid scope to be a legacy and to continue on after its shelf life, if you will.